Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Welcome everybody to AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, and boy do we have a pretty big episode for you today, because this week, there has been so much happening at once, where it was just big news after big news. It was the kind of week where I really had to go and pick and choose which stuff to really go and talk about. So I'm pretty sure we will have not only a big episode, but probably a fun-filled episode as well. So hopefully this will be something that you will all enjoy. But before we do begin this episode, there is a subject matter that I would like to go and discuss about. And this is something that not only has it gotten massively big, it's the biggest news that did happen this week, but it's something that it is unavoidable to go and discuss about. And I would like to go and start things off by taking a moment to discuss about the whole situation with George Floyd. Now, for those of you who don't know, what happened to George Floyd is that he is a black man from Minnesota, and there were some cops that really handled him way too hard, down to the point where they actually murdered him, and it was actually caught on camera, but they were not arrested immediately. There was no action that was taken from them because of this. And from there, that's where it began to have some protests and people trying to call out the cops. But what ended up happening is that the police force in Minnesota decided they were not going to hold back, and they decided to go and immediately just let it all out against the protesters. Now, keep in mind, these protesters were not like the deplorables that were desperate to reopen during the pandemic. They weren't carrying any weapons or anything like that. They were just protesting for human rights. But the police decided that they don't care. They're African Americans. They're not white people. So they decided to go and lay it all out by opening fire and also throwing tear gas at them. And this pretty much built so much up to the point where right now we are seeing massive riots all across America, where it is the citizens of America versus the police force. And I will say that witnessing that happening and seeing all that unfurl in Minnesota, it was honestly very disappointing to see, because all I can think of is just that history is repeating itself again and again and again. Coincidentally enough, I was just doing research on the Los Angeles riots of 1992, and what we are seeing right now with Minnesota is nothing but a shot-for-shot remake. It is very disappointing and extremely sad as well that it really goes to show that America has not learned its lesson regarding not only police brutality, but systematic racism, where this is just a story that's happening again and again, where the police is abusing their powers in order to actually kill off African Americans and other racial minorities and do whatever they can in order to go and get away with it, or whatever consequences would happen to them are not as bad as they should be. But really, when you do highlight this entire situation, the truth is that it's not really a systematic racism problem. The hard truth is the fact that America has a white supremacist problem. Now, keep in mind, this is happening all over the world. America is not the only place that has a white supremacist issue. Like, there are places in Europe that have it, South Africa has it, and even in Canada, like, we do have a little bit of a white supremacist problem happening, where we treat racial minorities pretty badly. But it's in America that it is the most prominent and the worst, because not only are they not doing anything about it for decades or even centuries, but also the fact that they are actually putting in more effort to try to go and normalize it, that they want to make it okay to go and beat up and kill racial minorities so that people of power can just go and get away with it, and especially for white people to get away with it, and they get better treatment and more privileges than racial minorities. And this is something that we are seeing both in the police force and especially with the government. And even the government right now, especially with Donald Trump on a daily basis encouraging white supremacist behavior towards his fan base. And yes, I am not afraid to say that Donald Trump is a white supremacist, and that is something that everyone knows. And we are even at the point right now, like another prominent example of how this is a white supremacist problem is the fact that the racists and the white supremacists are now trying to go and fight back and twist the narrative to make the protesters and the racial minorities look like the bad guys in this situation. They want to try to frame it in a way that the riots are more in the wrong than the Minnesota cop that killed George Floyd. They want to try to twist the narrative where they want to pin the blame and use scapegoats like George Soros, or try to say like Antifa's the terrorists as an excuse so that racists and white supremacists won't suffer the consequences as bad as they should. And by the way, I'll just say right now, Antifa is not terrorism. White supremacy and racism is. I just need to go and clarify that immediately. And of course, this is a situation where not only tensions are high, but emotions are very high as well. And there are, of course, a lot of people that are afraid to go and discuss about it because they are scared that this is a subject that is quote unquote political. And of course, this is the kind of subject matter when people would go and discuss this, then of course there would be those waves of comments of people trying to say, stop talking about politics. You should only focus on what you're doing. You should stay in your place and not talk about politics. And even when I have expressed that as well, like I've gotten those comments, and I'm sure talking about this in my podcast right now, that I will get this right now, that like people will say stop talking about politics or whatever. And I will say to everybody who resents me for quote unquote talking about politics, or people who would go out of their way to comment that I should stop talking about politics, I'm just going to say right now, I do not give a fuck, nor will I ever will. Because yes, I am not afraid to speak about politics or to speak out about serious subject matter or to express my thoughts on any major issues like this where it could quote unquote divide people, because I'm not afraid to go and publicly express my thoughts, and I want to go and set a better example to my viewers. And the thing is, if this ends up alienating deplorable bigots and people who are cowards because they're too scared to stand up to injustice, then you know what? So be it. It is a sacrifice that I am willing to make to stand up for what is right. Now, the thing is, I'm sure a lot of people at this point are wondering, what can they do in order to help this? What can they do to stand up against racism and white supremacy and go and fight it out, to make sure that we could fight it, that we could defeat it, and that we could silence it? Well, there are plenty of ways that we could go and do so. Of course, to speak out about it. Screw all those people that say stop talking about politics, and express your thoughts and remind the world that racism is bad. That the treatment that racial minorities are having right now compared to white people is absolutely wrong. That we need to go and fight and actually really get out of our way to really express that yes, racial minorities deserve as much rights as white people, that they still have a long way to go, but we, as the population, have to fight those people in power in order to achieve that. And actually, I just remembered that there is another prominent example as to how it is a white supremacist issue, because if you look at last month and you look at all those deplorable white people that are protesting to reopen the economy and screw all the rules of social distancing and wearing masks and stuff like that, you see how the police were treating them? They did nothing towards them. And those people who try to protest the coronavirus and stuff like that, they were behaving as badly as the terrorists that took down the World Trade Center by carrying around their guns, by spewing out racial slurs, by doing every deplorable thing possible. And yet, again, looking at the protesters right now that are fighting for the human rights of racial minorities, they don't have guns. They don't have anything. In fact, the people that are causing anarchy and chaos are the Trump supporters, are the far right, are the people that want to try to make the protesters look bad. That's the real situation, and yet the police are really going after them hard. That's where you can see that there is a major white supremacist problem here. But if there is another way that you can go and actually help out in this situation, there is also other alternatives that you can do other than speaking out or like protesting on social media or even going on the streets for it. What you can do is that you can also go and donate as well. There are many organizations, but you can actually go, like, one of the main ones is the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which I actually went and donated. But there are plenty of others that you can go and actually donate to organizations that actually do help out on human rights and to help out on Black rights as well. There's other places like ACLU Minnesota, Campaign Zero, and many, many more. So that's another thing that you can go and do. But if there is one thing that if I would go and conclude all this, is that I just would have to go and say that when it comes to how Black people and how racial minorities are behaving right now, what you are seeing in Minnesota and all across America as well, this is why they kneel. This is why they riot. This is why they speak out that there is injustice in America and that racism and white supremacy is still thriving and that it is a problem and that racism and white supremacy is as much of a deadly virus as COVID-19. The thing is with all this, if there is one message to take from everything that I have discussed, is that Black lives matter. Don't give me any of that garbage of all lives matter or that, oh, there's racism against white people is as bad as the racial minority. No, cut that freaking bullcrap because it's not about you. It's about the racial minorities and it's about Black people being poorly treated, especially by the government and by the police. So overall, Black lives matter. So with that said and done, I think it is very important to go and speak out about this. So with that said now, people, are we all ready to go and begin by talking about the stories that I have here for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it, folks. Are we all ready now? Let's see. Are we prepared? Yes, people are ready. That is set. That is great. And they're... Okay, let's see. All right, that's great. That's great. Okay, perfect. So... with all that said, it is now time that we shall go and get this one started. Now, coincidentally, actually, even though we are beginning this, what I'm going to do is a transition right now because not only are we talking about something related to justice, but this is something to shed some light because justice can actually be served in this case. It does actually exist, considering that I have talked about the current situation with George Floyd and the white supremacy problem across America. There are times when you can actually see that justice can be served and that the bad guys can actually be taken down, which in this case here is actually with Kyoto Animation. And yes, it is official. The arsonist is now in jail. Yes, it has reported that the arsonist, which by the way, I am not going to name his name for the respect of the victims of this terrible tragedy. So I'm just only going to refer to this person as the arsonist. But it is official that Japanese police has now officially arrested the arsonist. And for those of you who don't know, if you need a quick little, a quick fresh reminder about the whole situation, is that it actually happened last July, where unfortunately the biggest tragedy in possibly the biggest tragedy in animation history has occurred, where there are some legitimate casualties, where an arsonist has entered one of the buildings of Kyoto Animation and set the whole building on fire, which unfortunately has ended up killing 36 people and injured an additional 33. And just to go and read you a little bit of an excerpt here from my source on Variety, it even states that most of the victims of the fire were women in their 20s and 30s. Kyoto Animation, familiar known as KyoAni, was famed as a female-friendly workplace in a mostly male-dominant industry, which is one of the reasons why KyoAni is actually very respected in the animation and anime community, because if there is something that in the anime industry and the anime community really needs right now, is a lot more feminism, so that women can be more open and a lot more accepted in the community. But anyways, going back into what I was talking about here with the arsonist. Now, I'm sure some of you are probably very shocked about this. Like, how is it that now the dude is arrested? Why is he not arrested immediately on the spot? Like, why did we have to wait about like 10 months for this to happen? Well, there actually is a reason. Is because, well, not surprisingly, the arsonist was one of the people that actually did get severely injured. I mean, no surprise, the dude was playing with fire, so of course the dude would get burned. So to read that part for you, in my source here on Variety, it states, the arsonist was found near the scene and apparently has admitted to setting the fire. There is no mistake, the police quoted him as saying, the arsonist is said to have accused the studio of stealing his ideas. In a life-threatening condition for months, the arsonist received multiple skin grafts at a hospital in Osaka. He was later sent to a hospital in nearby Kyoto in November for rehabilitation. Police previously intended to arrest him in January, but he was too ill. He has now been taken to a Kyoto police station for interrogation. So that's pretty much the big thing, is that he hurt himself in the process, which is not really that surprising, and almost nearly badly. I guess you could say a good comparison would be what he did to himself is basically just like Anakin Skywalker at the end of Star Wars Episode 3. Except, like, there's nobody that's like Obi-Wan that's gonna tell him, like, you were like a brother to me. No, like, you just got a raging psychopath that's just angrily looking at everyone going, I hate you! But yeah, like, as you could tell, the dude suffered a lot of damage, and like it's pretty understandable why they had to go and make all these major delays in order to make sure to wait until the guy can physically heal himself. I don't know if they would also try to go and mentally heal himself, because let's be honest, in terms of his mentality, it's just long gone. But the thing is with him is that they did have to try to wait a little bit in order to ensure that they have to go and properly send him to prison so that he could physically be able to get himself back to normal, so then they can properly give him the punishment. Because yeah, the fire is one thing, but you can't really mix the element of like he's on fire and he should go to jail and stuff like that. Like it's one and then the other. But at the same time, there is also another factor that should be obvious as to why this has been massively delayed, and that is because of COVID-19. And I think it is safe to say that the situation with the pandemic in prisons, that's like an entire subject in itself that I could discuss in length for hours, because there really is a lot to say, and it is a very controversial... Whoa, boy! Whew. I never had a rapid fire burp come out like that before. Anyways, I do apologize for that. As I was saying, now, the whole subject with the pandemic and prisons, it is very controversial, because you'll have some people say that, okay, good, let these prisoners die, they deserve it, and then you got another group of people that would say that they deserve human rights as well, that they should also be treated and stuff like that. It is a very controversial statement, all that together. So, in the case of Japan, they do have to wait a little bit in order to ensure that the pandemic in their situation would get get better before they can get things rolling again. So with all that delays, with all those delays happening, of course, the arsonist would have to wait a little bit, even after he would have his time to heal himself and to make sure that the operation is fine, that he is physically able to go and walk again, to make sure the burns and the wounds, they are all patched up and that they are healed. So now that the arsonist did get some extra time, now they can actually go and send him to prison. And the funny thing is that if there is one comment that I do have to go and make regarding this article in particular, is that it is kind of funny where Variety does have to put in the words like allegedly, because like even in the title, like they don't have to officially say, they cannot officially say that he is like he's the one who actually did it, because it says that he is a suspect, or that a lot of the attacks like on him, it's apparently has admitted, or like would use words like allegedly and stuff like that. But I think it is safe to say that with the information that we do know right now and what has been said about the events, the dude did it. There is no denying on that whatsoever. Like, you could tell this guy, like, it has been reported in the past that this is someone who actually does have a history of criminal activity, already has, like, some kind of criminal record, he is totally not mentally stable, has to take a lot of medication on a daily basis, and also a little bit of a stalker as well. It even states here that, let's see here. It even says, police in Saitama near Tokyo uncovers DVDs from Kyoto Animation where they raided the arsonist's home. They have also investigated the arsonist as a source of anonymous threatening message made against the company in 2018. The sender reportedly used the Tor identity disguising software. So basically the best way to go and describe the arsonist is that he's a lot like the creepy stalker in Perfect Blue. If you saw the movie, then you know exactly what I mean. Like the ugly creep that always stalks the main protagonist, and like you could tell that this is someone who's really mentally not all there. It's pretty much a similar image right there, except in this case right over here, this isn't really a fanboy, this is really a hater that's just going to the extreme. Like, this is the kind of like what even more than what people think haters in the comment section are. So that really is the big thing with this whole situation. But I will say that this definitely is a great moment for the people of Kyoto Animation. Not just for Kyoto Animation, but also for the victims and the families and friends of the victims, because finally they can now have justice. They can now have a little bit of moment of peace with the whole situation, now knowing that the arsonist is locked up, the arsonist is arrested, and that consequences will be taken place, that now they can finally take the time to actually go and move on. And luckily, in the case of Kyoto Animation, they are moving on. They are still working, and they are still doing their best to provide some beloved Japanese animated works. In fact, ever since the arson attack, they did already release some works as well. Like there is one of Violet Evergarden, Eternity, and the Auto Memories doll, and they even have a movie that's coming up. It was supposed to be released early this year, but because of the pandemic, well, they have to keep on delaying it. So we know that they even have a full movie that's coming up, and they're still keeping a lot of their franchises, including Violet Evergarden, very strong. So overall, it is very nice to see justice can actually be served, and that the people of KyoAni and the families and friends of the victims can finally now have a moment of peace. So now with that said, I would like to know in the chat wall, what do you all think about this whole situation? What do you all feel about the arsonist finally getting arrested? Do you think it took way too long? Are you happy for Kyoto Animation finally getting some peace, and for the victims and stuff like that? Let me know what you all think on this. Alright. You know, at a time when people are turning a blind eye to injustice in the States, at least Japan is getting their act together. This is a win for the workers and the victims of the fire. Here's hoping that Kyo gets back on his feet, and the arsonist rots in jail, and the proceeds to burn in hell. And then proceeds to burn in hell. Sorry about that. Pun very much intentional. However, I will say, burning down the building because they allegedly stole his idea seems kind of petty. I know, and that's kind of like what makes it frightening. I've already stated this before, but this was honestly scary when I first read it, because this is a story that I've heard plenty of times before. It has happened again and again and again when companies like DreamWorks, Disney, or Pixar would always be alleged for stealing other people's ideas. It has always happened before, but usually with those people, all they do is try to go to court and try to sue them, which never works out well for them. But in this case here, this is a psychopath that decided to take some extreme actions into it. So that's honestly the big situation in all this. That's what kind of makes it frightening, is that yes, it is petty, but with the actions that he took, it makes it very frightening. Let's see now. Finally, justice is served. The victims of Kyo arson finally avenged. Now it's time for some peace. Yeah, well, let's hope so. Let's hope for the best that, like, the sentence that he will get, like, will be very justifiable. I'm gonna go to Japan this May, but due to the pandemic, I cannot go. But if I do, then I'll go pay my respects to the animators when I see the location. Hopefully, I'll still go soon. I got everything prepared to go to Japan. I'm just gonna say right now, I don't know. Like, at least not right now. I don't know. I'm honestly a little bit hesitant for you to go and do that, and I'm saying this for the respect of the people around the area, because that's one thing that the people who live around the building of Kyoto Animation, that's what they're worried about, if that area would become like a tourist trap where you would get too many weeaboos coming in and want to pay their respects and stuff like that, and where like this quiet little area would become a little too crowded and a little bit too loud. So honestly, for now, I am a little bit hesitant on that. So just like, if you are gonna do it, please be very respectful to not only the Kyoto Animation building, but also with the people around the area. So I'm just laying that out there first off. Let's see. Let's see. You're lucky this is real life, because if this is fiction, the dude would turn into Two-Face. Well, then again, it would just... Like, if this were fiction, then this little thing would probably be considered cliched, to be honest. I mean, this is not the first time that we've heard stuff like this before. Okay. Let's see now. Hearing this news feels satisfying. This guy should go to prison for what he has done towards Kyoto Animation, since many animators have died because of him. I finally gotten around to see a silent voice, and I thought it looks great for how it is. Seeing this movie made me appreciate Kyoto Animation, so I hope they can finally have some peace after hearing this news. Alright. Let's see. Let's see. They have hospitals and prisons in Japan, don't they? I feel like they should have been arrested a long time ago. I haven't watched many of Kyo Annie's works, but I find this incredibly sad and tragic, and the fact that many people died in studios that treats its workers like people. Yeah. Well, the thing is that I'm sure they do have hospitals, but you gotta keep in mind that the dude was severely burned. Like, yeah, they have hospitals and prisons, but they're probably not as well equipped for, like, major life-threatening injuries like that. So that would probably be why he didn't immediately be sent to prison. So, and especially with the prisons there, they're more for, like, minor injuries that did occur in prisons. So just to keep in mind on that. All right, so I'm going to go and read one more comment before we're going to jump onto the next story. So, well, like I said the last time we talked about this, when life brings you down, always get back up. It's never too late to rebuild or bring back what was lost to return as it is. It's honestly nice. Justice has conveyed and taking the guys down. It's over, Arson. We have the high ground. All right, well, that's cute. That's nice. Okay, so for our next story, I actually have something that honestly feels very interesting, I gotta say. This is honestly a subject that I never knew really existed, but some have. But honestly, this needs to be a little more mainstream for the animation crowd because I feel like this is going to be something that will be very, very interesting to hear. And no. This isn't something that a lot of people know about. This is not something that not many people are familiar with. This is actually regarding a Ren and Stimpy documentary. Yes, it has been, sorry, I'm tripping on my words, but anyways, it has been reported that Gravitas Ventures has gotten the North American distribution rights to Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy Story, which is a feature documentary made by Ron Sicaro and Kimo Easterwood. Now, basically, long story short on this is that this is a documentary on the history of not just Ren and Stimpy, but also one of the creators, John Chris Falusi. Now, if I would go and read from my source here on Deadline, what the documentary is fully about, it states... The doc offers a behind-the-scenes look at the popularity of the 1990s cartoon, which broke cable ratings and amassed an extensive fan base. Creator John Chris Falusi was celebrated as a visionary, but even though his personality suffused the show, dozens of artists and network executives were just as responsible for the show's meteoric rise. As Chris Falusi's worst impulses were let loose at the workplace and new allegations about even more disturbing behavior have surfaced, his reputation now threatens to taint the show forever. And that's basically the main summary about the whole situation. And funny enough, the first time people have actually heard about it is actually at the Sundance Film Festival, where it actually made its premiere at this year's Sundance. And if you are curious to know when this one will be coming out, well, apparently it states that it will be released in theaters and on demand in August. We don't know where, but they are hoping for an August release date. And in the case of this documentary, it actually does sound very interesting, especially regarding the factor of John Chris Falusi. I think, honestly, with the new documentaries that have been released and a lot of the stuff that have been talking about people who have been accused of sexual harassment or targets of the hashtag #MeToo movement, where there's been a lot regarding like Harvey Weinstein. There's recently been one about Richard Simmons, not the dude from Kiss, but there is one recently about the hip hop record executive. And then there's also recently another one. Well, there's been a few actually of Jeffrey Epstein. I feel like it's about time that there would be someone in the animation industry that would get one. And who else would be a perfect example other than John Chris Falusi? Yeah, maybe some could say John Lasseter, but John K definitely is a very fascinating specimen on his own, because with the history of Ren and Stimpy, yeah, it definitely was a very impactful show. In fact, some people could say, would go as far and even say that it was the most revolutionary show of the 1990s and really helped out Nickelodeon to really become a beloved channel that is dedicated to animation. And with John K., like, he really stamped his style onto Ren and Stimpy, and that's where John K., believe it or not, there was a time when John K. was one of the most admired animators in the industry, where the amount of praise that you would see for people like Gendy Tartakovsky, John K. would get that same kind of amount, that people would even go as far as call him one of the most influential animators of all time. But then suddenly, the hashtag #MeToo movement happened, and then we are reminded of the things that he has done in the past. Where, yeah, like, people were aware of it before, but they still highly admired him regardless. But now, in this new hashtag #MeToo environment, now his kingdom has pretty much completely crumbled. Where now, like, we've heard a lot more about the full stories of people who used to have a relationship with John Kay at a very young age, and the stories of how he would go and treat his artists, and now there is nothing more that people don't want to be more so than John Kricfalusi. And it's actually very fascinating, and I gotta go and say this right now, that it is kind of funny in terms of the wording that that this article has actually put out in terms of, like, the allegations and stuff like that. Like, funny enough, number one is actually, like, the final part here of the description, saying that because of his reputation, it threatens to taint the show forever. And I'm just gonna say right now, no, not really, because a lot of people to this day, especially in the animation community, they still adore Ren and Stimpy. They still highly enjoy it because, number one, like, we have been trained enough to know about how to separate the art from the artist. And Ren and Stimpy is still a highly admired show, and is still considered a highly revolutionary show, one of the most impactful animated series of all time, and especially in the 1990s, that would pave the way for future animated shows like SpongeBob SquarePants even. And on top of that, the funny thing is that this might be considered a controversial thing, but with the animation community, they are kind of rewriting history in a way where they're no longer crediting John Kricfalusi as the creator, but instead they decided to give full credit to the co-creator, Bob Camp, quoting that guy is the man who should be credited as creating Ren and Stimpy. And funny enough, another thing that I want to mention, what this article has stated, is regarding the way that they have discussed the allegations that are against him. Like, the new allegations about even more disturbing behavior has surfaced. I'm just gonna say right now, number one, they ain't new. Again, this is something that many people already know about, especially the people who have worked with him. Unfortunately, they didn't really do a whole lot about it because, like, he is the boss after all, but it is something that is widely known, and plus the fact that John Kay was actually pretty public about it, so it's not really allegations, they're more like confirmed facts. And if you don't know what I am talking about, is that not only is John Kricfalusi a sexual predator, but the thing is that he is also a very infamous pedophile. This is a dude that really likes his girls real young. And when I say young, I mean in the legitimate teenage years of like 14 to 17. If you're 18 or older, well then you can say goodbye because John Kay ain't freaking interested. And again, there are many ways that John Kay actually did confirm this, where he himself was actually pretty chill and pretty open about it. I think they even mentioned at one point, there was this book, like there was a book about Ren and Stimpy, like kind of like the history of Ren and Stimpy and the behind the scenes and stuff like that, where they even mentioned that John Kricfalusi had a 17-year-old girlfriend when he was like in his late 30s and early 40s. And then there's also, probably like one of the biggest evidence that I could actually find. I remember, like, this was something I discovered when I first talked about this in my old podcast. It was actually an excerpt from the Howard Stern show when like this was back in the days when it was like Howard Stern was like at his prime and he was known as like the ultimate edgelord of radio and stuff like that. And he had John Kay and I believe Billy West was there as well as a special guest. And they were talking about Ren and Stimpy and also the artworks of John Kay. And they mentioned about one girl that he drew, like not based on a real girl, but it's just like a character that John Kay created. And of course, with Howard Stern being the edgelord that he was back then, like he was pretty much commenting on the physical appearance of the girl that's in the drawing. You know, he's just on the side like, oh yeah, you know, I see how she is, you know, she's actually pretty hot, you know, she's got some nice tits, you know, she's got a great ass, you know, she's actually pretty hot. And then John Kay wants to try to join in the fun on really selling on the sex appeal of his drawing. And so he decided to lean on the microphone and say, and she's underage too. And yes, that's actually a thing. You can actually go and look it up and find it out yourself. where John K. actually did state that she is underage and trying to sell that as a bonus on her sex appeal. It's like, oh, she's 14. Oh, well then. I was like, come on, dude. I was like, oh man, that's just nasty, man. But yes, unfortunately, in the case of John K., like, it is pretty much a confirmed fact. And, like, even when the allegations have surfaced by the women who knew John K. when they were teenagers, like, when they released their article on BuzzFeed, the thing is that when you go and read it, for people in the animation community and the animation industry, most of what they said is nothing new. Those were facts that are already well known about John Kricfalusi. And also, I just realized one more thing to add about the comment about, like, oh no, John Kricfalusi's reputation will taint the show forever. I mean, technically, John K. himself won't do it, but I mean, it did technically get tainted with the adult party pool thing. What was it again? That, you know, the adult party cartoon, or the adult cartoon party thing? That ended up tainting Ren and Stimpy much more than adult party cartoon. Yes, thank you. That ended up tainting John K. That ended up tainting Ren and Stimpy much more than John K.'s work ethics and his taste in women overall. So honestly, I don't know how this documentary will go. This is honestly the first time I have heard about it. But you know, honestly, I am very intrigued to see what this documentary is all about. This actually does look very interesting and does actually look pretty cool. So honestly, I would highly recommend for the animation community, if they are paying attention to this, to go and mark their calendars in August to go and keep an eye on Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story. Not only if you're a Ren and Stimpy fan, but also, like, if you're interested in the story of John Kricfalusi, because yes, he is a controversial and disgraced figure in animation, but that don't mean it don't make him interesting, though. I think, honestly, if done right, then this is going to be a real fascinating documentary to look at. So with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask, what do you all think about this whole thing with Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story? Are you guys interested to check it out? Is there some subjects you would like to know for the documentary to bring up? Let me know what you all think. Okay. Let's see here. I wonder if this documentary will talk about the fact that Nick did want to make a Ren and Stimpy movie before they decided they want nothing to do with the franchise anymore because the spin-off Ren and Stimpy's adult party cartoon left a humongous sour taste, which completely damaged the reputation of Ren and Stimpy. I wonder if they will also talk about some of the other Spunko work, like the George Liquor program, the first web animated series ever made. John has a pretty good legacy, but a bad lifestyle. I mean, they could. Like, they definitely could. But honestly, if I would take a guess, I would probably say that, yeah, like, I never heard about the fact that they wanted to do a Ren and Stimpy movie. But if that really is the case, that it's because of the adult party cartoon that ruined it, then honestly, I would believe you, because yes, it actually did give a sour taste to Ren and Stimpy, especially at the time. I remember when I had a chat with JJ Villard when we were discussing about his new animated series, Fairy Tales. Like, he did mention that, like, he highly admired Ren and Stimpy. It was, like, his favorite animated series, but then Adult Party Cartoon came in, and it was just like, ugh, yeah, no, man. That's just taking it way too far. It's a no for me, dog. You know, like, it did sound like it had potential of Ren and Stimpy going a little bit more adult and, like, unleashing more of like what John K. would have in mind. Like, it sounds great in theory, but in practice, yeah, it's just a little too insane. Okay, let's see now. I'm interested in the documentary. Do you think the movie theaters will open in late July or in August? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Don't ask me about when movie theaters are going to be open in general, because it would really depend on the location that you're in right now. Like, I know there are some varying dates around the summer in the US. Canada, well, I don't know if we're fully ready for that yet. I honestly, I don't know. It really does depend on where you ask, but at least they do have a backup where they know they will go and release it on demand. So at least we would have that. Let's see now. What else do we got in terms of like comments? There it is. Okay, there we go. Just needed to let some gas out. Let's see. This sounds just like the Dan Schneider incident, where he was known for messing and raping women's feet, like Miranda Cosgrove and Jamie Lynn Spears, and a bunch more. And it was found out a year after he won his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Kids' Choice Awards for his work on Kenan and Kel. So keep that in mind as well. Oh my god. I just had a light bulb. It's like, oh, that guy in Nickelodeon. Oof. I don't know, but I'm gonna be very honest. In this case here, I don't know if he would be mentioned in this documentary. I don't think they would even bring up Dan Schneider if he was involved with Ren and Stimpy. Like, maybe he would, but they wouldn't really go into his incidents. But honestly, in the case of Dan Schneider, that dude deserves his own documentary. That's like an entire other can of worms that would be really fascinating to go and open. So there is that one as well. Let's see now. I never got into Ren and Stimpy, but this sounds interesting. If movies are open again by August, I'll probably end up checking it out, and I do have to wonder, though, how deep into the allegations they'll go with this. That could be another case. It's because that's going to be a big thing that will be considered controversial. How well will handle the controversy? Like, how well are they going to go and discuss about the subject? Because there are some that do it very well, and there are others where it would feel a little bit like sensationalism, and that it feels like they're trying to sneak in an agenda more so than stating the facts and telling the truth about the whole situation. So you never know how this is going to go. But I don't know. Either way, this is a very fascinating idea, and I would be so down to check this out. All right. Now, let's go and read one more comment before we're going to jump onto the next story. I guess that Nick has some bad luck when it comes to hiring people who turn out to be terrible people. John Kay, Chris Savino, Butch Hardman, Dan Schneider, and possibly more. But still, I'm rather interested to see this documentary and learn more about the history of making Ren and Stimpy. Yeah, they would have some bad luck, but that doesn't mean all bad people are from Nickelodeon and stuff. And I mean, like, it would come from a variety of studios. Like, of course, Disney is guilty with John Lasseter, but then you would also have, like, Paramount Animation with the original director of Wonder Park. There are a few other places as well, like several examples. Somehow I can't really think of them on top of my mind. Well, technically this isn't about sexual harassment, but technically you could say Nitrogen Studios with Greg Tiernan with the making of Sausage Party. But in the case of Nickelodeon, you got to keep in mind, yeah, there are several bad eggs, but there are a few more as well that are really, really good people and still highly admirable. Like, you still got to keep in mind, this is still the home of Steven Hillenburg and, it's Joe something. I'm trying to remember. The guy who made Rocko's Modern Life and Camp Lazlo. Joe, I wanted to say Joe Ross, but, yeah, and even Cartoon Network is a little bit guilty of that as well with the creator of Clarence as well. Joe Murray, thank you, folks. Yeah, like, keep in mind, it is also the place that had Steven Hillenburg and Joe Murray. So you do have that as well. But yeah, like, honestly, when it comes to this documentary, I am pretty intrigued to see what they want to do with this. Okay, so now with that said, it is now time that we're going to jump onto the next story. And you know what we do need? Some good news. It's about time that we're going to talk about something positive and something that people can look forward to. And in this case, I gotta say, despite all the horrible events that has been happening in this world, man, was this, for a moment, man, was this a great week to be a Jim Henson fan. And we actually got two news in one story here, And I'll start this off by talking about Labyrinth. Yes, TriStar Pictures has officially announced that they are indeed working on a sequel to the Jim Henson cult classic, Labyrinth. And not only that, but they even hired a few people as well, where they got Maggie Levin, the writer and director of Into the Dark and My Valentine on Hulu, to go and work on the script, and they got Scott Derrickson to go and direct the feature. And if you guys don't know, Scott Derrickson is the guy who directed Doctor Strange. So that's what they have gotten so far. We don't have any official confirmation regarding the cast, who's going to be coming back, and when this is going to be released. This is like still early in pre-production, but we know that at TriStar, they are working on it. But not only that, there is also the other news that has been announced for Jim Henson fans that they are really excited about, because not only is Labyrinth coming back, but we also got Fraggle Rock fully coming back. Yes, it was announced by Apple that Fraggle Rock is going to have a reboot series. With this reboot series, the people that are going to be involved with it will include showrunners Matt Fussfeld and Alex Cuthbertson, who are going to be working on it not only as show writers, but also as producers and writers. And even on top of that, there will be a couple of veteran puppeteers that will return to go and reprise their beloved characters. We got Dave Goelz coming back to play as Boober and Uncle Traveling Matt, and also Karen Pearl to come back as Red. And if you need a little bit of a description about what this is all about, or at least what the new series will be, then all you have to do is just check out this article on Deadline. As it states, the new Fraggle Rock series will reunite the original stars, Gobo, Red, Boober, Moki, Wembley, and Uncle Traveling Matt, for new songs and adventures with the same spirit as the classic. And on top of that, the reason why I say that they are fully coming back is that technically you could actually go on Apple TV Plus and you can actually see them live. Well, not see them live, but you could still go and check them out, where they actually have a series of shorts right now called Fraggle Rock, Rock On. And with that series of shorts, that's actually specifically made for the lockdown, for the pandemic, where we do see the Fraggles interacting with special guests, just to check up on how they're doing with their lives. To read you a little bit of a description, in fact, there is a little thing happening here. It states that Fraggle Rock, Rock On mini episodes feature special guests Annalise Morissette, Common, Jason Mraz, Neil Patrick Harris, Tiffany Haddish, and Ziggy Marley. The shorts focus on how we are all connected through friendship in the era of social distancing. While the Fraggles might be in different parts of the Fraggle Rock caves, they still find ways to have fun together with music, silliness, special guests, and of course, the help of doozer tubes, devices created by the industrious doozers. So that's the whole situation. So not only do they have a series of shorts right now, but also they're now gonna get a full series on Apple TV Plus. And I'm gonna be very honest, with the news that has been released with the Labyrinth sequel and Fraggle Rock getting a full series, you know, honestly, I was kind of half expecting for Netflix to come in and announce like a season 2 of The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. But you know, the funny thing is that with this Dark Crystal series, you could definitely see the impact where we are seeing a bit of a comeback of the other Jim Henson properties. Now, yes, we know that like the most famous Jim Henson works we got right now are The Muppets and Sesame Street, but now we are starting to see the other works of Jim Henson, and more people are starting to pay attention of Jim Henson and his creations, and like we are starting to have like a newfound admiration of Jim Henson in terms of his works and how he is is as a person, where he is starting to become like in the ranks of like Walt Disney in terms of creators. Now, of course, like a lot of people already have that admiration, but as time goes on, the legacy of Jim Henson has become a lot more highly admired as time would move on. And in the case here, I could definitely see the impact where like now with the Dark Crystal having a rebooted series, and it actually went very, very well on Netflix, where not only is it a great series in itself that it is highly praised, and by the way, I just want to say, if you guys haven't seen the show, I highly recommend you do so. Like, even if you're not familiar with the Dark Crystal movie, it is still worth checking out. But the big thing with the Dark Crystal is that it also left an impact where slowly but surely we are seeing Jim Henson style puppetry back in the mainstream, where not only Dark Crystal is having a comeback, but also like they're pretty much having a comeback primarily on streaming services, where right now, coming soon at the end of July, we're going to have the Muppets have their own series on Disney Plus. And on top of that, Disney Plus is also going to get an original Jim Henson production called Earth to Ned, which is like an alien style talk show. And then you also got HBO Max, which is really using Sesame Street to their biggest potential. Like, not only do they have all their episodes, but also they got a new spin-off called the Not Too Late Show, the Not Too Late Show with Elmo. And then like now, like with Netflix, of course, we got Dark Crystal, but now we also have Apple TV Plus, where they got Fraggle Rock. And then, like, we got this, with the Labyrinth sequel. We don't know if that's going to be released either in theaters in the future or on streaming services, but that is also making a massive comeback. So the big thing to highlight is the fact that it really shows that now, like, Jim Henson's other projects outside of the Muppets are starting to gain back a lot more popularity. And if I may go and put my opinion, if I may go and put my little piece onto each of these projects, like, first of all, we got the comeback of Fraggle Rock, which honestly, I feel like it's about time that they would finally go and actually do something with the Fraggles, because if you guys don't know, for many years, they really tried hard to try to create an entire Fraggle Rock movie. But as time would move on, it always seemed impossible to actually go and create, because time and time again, they want to try to create a new Fraggle Rock, the Fraggle Rock movie, and it just never really worked out. So inevitably, what happened is that now there is a deal with Apple, and with Fraggle Rock Rock On, it seems like a little bit of a test to see that if people would be interested to get Apple TV Plus to go and check out the Fraggles, and it looks like it actually did work out. It actually succeeded in its operation, so much so that they agreed to go and create a new series. And who knows, maybe this could be the thing that could actually bring back the idea of the Fraggle Rock movie. Maybe this is what it needed to go and test that out, because if the shorts can be transformed into a series, then maybe the series can be transformed into a movie. And Apple so far is pretty impressed and pretty happy with what they've gotten so far with the new Fraggles with Rock On. So maybe the series can inspire more to develop bigger and more ambitious projects with the Fraggles. But then you also got this right here with the Labyrinth sequel. And if I may go and quickly put my take onto the original movie by Jim Henson, the original 1986 feature, I'm going to be very honest with you. I feel like it is one of Jim Henson's weaker works, to be honest. It's mainly because of the script. It doesn't necessarily feel as strong, but also I think like one of the biggest problems with the movie is regarding the tone, where like it's already bad enough where like some of the main characters are not really as likable. Like, I'm not necessarily all that fond of the main protagonist, you know, the teenage girl that entered in the Labyrinth and stuff, but it's also the tone that I do have a problem, because like the puppets and the visuals, like, they're all trying to take itself seriously. Like, you got the visuals of the Dark Crystal, but then you have the tone and the humor of the Muppets. And it just doesn't necessarily work well. I mean, these are two great things, but they don't necessarily mix together, and it just feels a little bit weird. But this is not to say that I do not understand the cult status of it. I completely get why people love this movie, and the good things to say about Labyrinth, they are brilliant. They are fantastic. The world building on this, not only is it purely original, but it's also highly admirable. The puppetry, top notch. It is phenomenal. And also David Bowie. I mean, like, David Bowie is hands down the best human actor in this. Like, honestly, his performance is just a lot of fun. So he really did help out, ham it out, but honestly, it's just overall great. So really, it's one of those cases where it's not really a good movie, but when it's good, like, the elements that are good, they are amazing. So, like, not the best, and, like, even if it is one of Jim Henson's weaker works, it's not necessarily, like, the worst, you know? It's not really horrible or, like, something you cannot bear. There have been some Muppet projects that are far worse than this. But in terms of the sequel right now that it is being directed by Scott Derrickson and stuff, I feel like right now it does give Labyrinth a second chance. And what I do hope to see from this is that they can improve upon some of the flaws from before, and that they could really go and enhance the things that are great about it. So I feel like it does give it a second chance and maybe, like, shed a new light onto Labyrinth to make something bigger and better. So that is something that I feel like it would actually be really fascinating and really fun to go and check out. So, to be honest with all this, again, I gotta say that it really has been a very nice week to be a Muppet fan, and honestly, I would actually feel pretty anticipated to see what they're gonna do with the Labyrinth sequel, and also see how things are gonna go with the Fraggle Rock reboot, because so far they're already off to a great start on Amazon. And I think already fans of Fraggle Rock can definitely trust that if they do return, then they're going to return in a way that will be satisfying. And, you know, I am intrigued to see, like, what they got up their sleeves. Like, if they can treat, like, if they're going to treat the Labyrinth sequel like they did with the, what was it? Like, if they could treat it like the Dark Crystal series, then honestly, I'm sold on this. I would totally be down to go and check it out. So overall, definitely exciting things to anticipate it for, and hopefully we will hear about more of them pretty soon. Okay, so now with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, what do you all think about the news of the Labyrinth sequel and the Fraggle Rock reboot series? Are you guys excited for this? Are you a little iffy on it? Which one are you more excited for? Let me know what you all think. Okay. Let's see here. I was expecting the good old Fraggles to make a comeback at some point, but a Labyrinth sequel? That was pretty damn unexpected. I haven't seen a single episode of Fraggle Rock, but I do have a mild respect for the sheer insanity of Labyrinth, so I'll check that out. The only question I have now is how they're gonna do it without David Bowie. Well, that is a pretty good question. That is pretty interesting. But, yeah, I think, honestly, you do bring up a pretty good point, because I do feel like it's going to be the biggest obstacle. Because, like I said, David Bowie is one of the best things about the original Labyrinth movie. So, how are they going to move on without him? That's probably going to be the trickiest thing. So, honestly, all we can do now is just hope that Scott and Maggie can think up of a great idea to have a replacement for David Bowie and have, like, a pretty solid and memorable villain. So, yeah, you do bring up a good point that is a little bit concerning. Let's see what we got here. Although I have no interest in both of these projects, don't hate me for saying that, but the whole Fraggle Rock reboot kind of reminds me of what happened to the Jetsons live action, where it started out as a movie at Paramount back in '85, but never happened. But 3 years ago, it was announced to have a TV series. I don't know. Like, honestly, I've never heard that they wanted to do. Okay, well, I mean, like, it's no surprise that like they would want to try to do some kind of live action Jetsons thing, but I don't know. Like, if a live action Jetsons TV series would happen, I don't know. It would feel weird, honestly. Okay, let's see, what else do we got here? What other comments we could read? I'm pretty intrigued for both projects, but the Fraggle Rock project is more intriguing to me. For the Labyrinth sequel, I might give this a chance when I get to watch the first film. I'm sure like there's an easy way to go and check it out. Like, you can get it digitally, of course. But maybe it's on Netflix or something. I'm sure by this point they would probably have it in a streaming service. Let's see now. I have a lot to say. First, Muppets Now, and now a new Labyrinth and Fraggle Rock. It's becoming a Jim apocalypse. Jim, wherever you are, your legacy is only getting bigger and better. You're becoming the Walt Disney of puppetry. But in all seriousness, I never saw Jim Henson's Labyrinth. I only seen Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. Speaking of the Jim Henson Company and Del Toro, they're collaborating to make a 2021 Pinocchio stop-motion animated movie. Oh yeah, that's gonna be exciting, man. I'm definitely keeping an eye out on that. That's gonna be epic. All right, so I guess I'll go and read one more comment. Oh, actually, there is one that this is fantastic news. As a fan of the 80s movies and TV shows, this is an outstanding move since 80s stuff is somewhat becoming popular again. All we need for the Labyrinth sequel is an awesome rendition of David Bowie's Magic Dance. Again, hopefully they will find someone to do justice for David Bowie. Anyways, Scott Derrickson making a sequel to Labyrinth is an interesting idea. I hope that Duncan Jones, the director and son of the late David Bowie, would fit in his father's footsteps as a starring role. Oh, that's true. We got Duncan. I don't know, man. I don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see on that. Alright, so the next story that I have is going to be a little bit of an update of what I've talked about yesterday. Not yesterday. What the fridge am I saying? Sorry, not yesterday, last week, in the last episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. You might recall that I've discussed about the openings of a couple of Florida theme parks, most namely Legoland Florida and Universal Orlando. Now, that is a bit of a controversial subject in itself, since the big discussion is regarding if Florida is actually ready to go and open up their theme parks. Well, the big thing this week is that we actually do have a couple more theme parks that are going to be opening, and one of them is going to be the big one, and probably the most anticipated to be reopened. And what I'm going to be talking about is going to be regarding Walt Disney World. But not just Walt Disney World, SeaWorld as well. First of all, let's go and discuss about SeaWorld, because, well, okay, actually, the big thing with both of them, actually, is that this week, the Orange County Economic Recovery Task Force has officially confirmed and approved for both SeaWorld and Walt Disney World to go forward with their plan in terms of reopening. Now, first of all, we got SeaWorld, in which they have announced that they're going to be opening pretty soon, actually. That they are going to be opening on June 11th. So as I am recording this, it is not going to be next Thursday, but it's going to be the Thursday after that. So not long after Universal Orlando. And if you need a refresher, Legoland Florida is going to be opening in a few days on June 1st. And then you got Universal Orlando that's going to be opening on June 5th. So that's just a little bit of a refresher. However, in both cases, of course, when they're going to be reopening, they are going to have some massive precautions, and you'll see what I mean. Now, it says here, reading from my source on Variety, SeaWorld interim CEO Mark Swanson, SeaWorld Orlando president Kyle Miller, and Discovery co-VP of operations Brad Gilmore also presented to the committee, outlining new rules such as face coverings, temperature checks, more rigorous cleaning, contactless payments, and enforced social distancing. But that's only SeaWorld. People don't necessarily care all that much about SeaWorld. The big thing is regarding Walt Disney World. When are they going to reopen? And let me tell you, out of all the Florida theme parks that have been reopening or planning to go and reopen, Disney is the one that's being the most careful, because unlike the others, they're not going to be opening in June, but instead in mid-July, where they're going to do it a few steps at a time, where they stated that they're going to start things out by reopening both the Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom on July 11th, and then they're going to go and reopen Epcot and Disney's Hollywood Studios on July 15th. But at the same time, you got to keep in mind that there is a lot of precautions with those as well, where it states here, Disney's Orlando theme parks will look a little different this summer. New requirements include temperature checks upon arrival, physical distancing, enhanced cleaning, hand washing and sanitizing stations, and limited contact enhancements such as contactless payments and mobile orders at restaurants, according to Disney World's Senior Vice President of Operations, Jim McPhee. High-touch experiences such as character meet and greets and playgrounds will be temporarily suspended. The parks will operate at reduced capacity and temporarily suspend parades and other events that attract crowds. Those who work at the parks will also be given temperature checks and issued face coverings. And also, just want to say on a side note that it has already been reported that Disney World, or the Disney parks in general, will be reopening with mandatory face masks. But in the case of Walt Disney World, they have also revealed that while you must wear a face mask, and this is for both cast members and for guests as well, there will be specially designed areas where you can have a little bit of a recovery, where you can actually go and take off your mask to have a little bit of a breather. And this is not for those petty people who always complain about not wearing masks and stuff like that. It's more for people who need some time to take off their masks so that they could actually breathe, because the Florida heat is going to be really harsh during the summer, so wearing a mask isn't going to be something that they could handle for much longer. So that's going to be a little thing that they will do to try to compensate a little bit for having mandatory masks, which honestly I do approve, and I do agree that it should be mandatory all around. So that's pretty much the big thing with this little update in terms of the Florida theme parks. And you guys may recall, I've already discussed in length about the idea that if it is a good idea or not for the Florida theme parks to open this soon, especially with Florida right now, where they're not really in a stable position in terms of the pandemic, if they are fully ready to go and reopen the economy. Like, it is a situation where it's not looking well for them, and there is a pretty strong risk that now that these theme parks are going to be reopening soon, then there is a strong chance that the pandemic could have another massive wave in Florida, and that they could go back to closing it down because the reopening was kind of like a failed operation. But I will say, like, the big thing that people are really focused on is regarding Walt Disney World, because if you guys don't know, when it comes to Disney fans, holy crap, right now, they are freaking desperate for Disney World to open. In fact, you may recall that Disney Springs is already reopened, and so far, even in the area over there, it's been pretty crazy. Like, to even enter into the shops, like, to enter into the World of Disney, which is like the major big store that's in Disney Springs that's all dedicated to Disney, or debatably you could say is one of, if not the biggest Disney store in the world. If you go in there, it's been reported where there's been like 3-hour lineups Just keep in mind, this is to go in a store. This is not to go in a ride or anything, but in a store, it would take 3 hours to go with giant, massive lines, which, yeah, technically the lines are caused by social distancing, but you could pretty much tell that people are desperate to go back to Walt Disney World. So, of course, Disney has to be the one where they gotta be the most careful in this situation. And I gotta say that if there is one major comment that I would say that if there is one major comment that I gotta do in terms of Disney opening much later than others, I feel like Disney is the smartest when it comes to reopening. Because right now, we are at a point where we can't predict what's in the further future, because right now, it's only gonna be in a few days that theme parks such as Legoland, Universal, and SeaWorld are gonna be reopening. And so far, things don't look pretty well in Florida, or things don't seem as stable, like to fully go and reopen major public places like theme parks. So in this case here, with Walt Disney World, since they are opening in mid-July, which is about a month and a half away, that's a lot more unpredictable. We don't know if things are going to be a lot more better or a lot more worse, or if it's going to be exactly like how it is right now in Florida. Like, we don't know how it's going to be, so it is a lot more unpredictable. But either way, Disney is playing it safe because they are playing the wait-and-see game to see how others are going to go. Because let's say the worst case scenario actually does happen. Let's say that you would have another wave would actually occur, especially in the Orange County area, where apparently this is actually caused by the reopening of not just the Florida theme parks, but just the Florida government trying to force their way into reopening the economy, and it didn't work out, and now there's a lot more people who are sick. There's a lot more people who have COVID-19, and unfortunately a lot more deaths as well. Now, at that point, that's when Disney is gonna go on the side, say I'm safe. I didn't do it. We did nothing. We didn't open yet. Those guys decided to open, but we wanted to wait till July. But now it doesn't look like we're ready. So it ain't our fault. Disney can actually have, the worst case scenario, Disney can actually have the license to say, it wasn't me. They can get away with not taking the blame in terms of, the pandemic if there is, another major wave that would happen in Florida because the operation of reopening the economy did not work. So in a way, you could say, Disney is in a position where they could actually sing out "wasn't me." They could just be on so why is it that Florida got a second wave? Wasn't me. Cause they opened Legoland. Wasn't me. Cause they opened Universal. Wasn't me. Cause they opened SeaWorld. Wasn't me. Cause they opened Disney Springs. Okay, kind of me. But yeah, that's kind of the big thing with this. I really do feel like Disney is actually pulling off a pretty smart move. And I mean, let's be honest, at this point, it is kind of inevitable that, these theme parks would have to go and open. And especially in the case of Walt Disney World, even if people are, really desperate to go back to Disney World, and you got a lot of Disney fans that, they're pretty much they're pretty much like a drug addict that needs his fix. It's come on, man. I need my fix. Come on, I need to go back to Disney World, man. Come on, give me anything. I'll do anything to get back, man. I'll even get back to It's a Small World, man. Come on, you can have It's a Small World. You can break it down. I want to hear that song again, man. Come on, I'll do anything. I'll even get back to Primeval World, man. Give me Primeval World. Give me Journey into Imagination with Figment. I'll do anything, man. I need my Disney World fix, man. I just need my Disney World fix. Even though they are like that right now, you could tell, at least Disney is playing it safe. They are aware that their fans are desperate for them to reopen, but honestly, it is a situation where we do have to wait and see. Honestly, we know it is inevitable for these theme parks to open, and let's be honest, no matter what date they would go and reopen, even if they would go, during the holiday season, you're still gonna get a whole bunch of people that would say that it is too soon or it's not the right decision to go and reopen. Like, it's gonna happen no matter what. But at least it is safe to assure that Disney is pulling the smart move where they are gonna be in a wait and see kind of attitude to see that if it is okay to go and fully reopen and check out if other theme parks like Universal, Legoland, and SeaWorld, if they could actually do well in this case. So, honestly, we don't know how it's going to go, but at least they are going to be reopening. So, honestly, let's just hope for the best in this situation. Is Florida ready for them? Honestly, I don't know, but I kind of doubt it. But we'll see, man. We'll just wait and see. Alright, so with that said, let's go into the chat wall. And it's time that I would like to go and ask you all, what do you all think about Disney World reopening and SeaWorld reopening as well? Do you think it's a smart move for them to go and reopen in general? Do you think it's too soon? Do you think it's too far away? Let me know what you think. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Well, this is becoming dangerous. Earlier in this podcast, you said America is becoming more impatient about the pandemic and people are risking each other's lives just to get money or because they want fresh air and exercise and entertainment. We must be on a high alert in case something goes wrong. I hope the animals of the animal kingdom don't catch the virus. I mean, it can happen to the other animals besides humans. Happened with tigers at the Bronx Zoo. Well, yeah, oh my god, I think, yeah, well, you gotta keep, actually, here's the big thing, is that they did say that there are gonna be some interactive areas where it's gonna be closed down, and I'm sure, like, in terms of Disney, they are going to be extremely careful. Like, they are taking a lot of these precautions, but I think in the case of Animal Kingdom, yeah, that's gonna be another major concern, but what I believe is that I don't think all the areas are going to be reopened. Like, the areas that would be, like, zoos per se, where there's going to be, like, animal exhibitions, unless, like, they're behind, like, unless they're, like, behind glass windows and stuff, I don't think they're going to be open. They're not going to open literally everything at the Animal Kingdom. So, honestly, like with Kilimanjaro Safari, they're going to be that is going to be closed down until a vaccine is going to be created. So, I'm sure, like, especially for Animal Kingdom, they got to be extra careful. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that they would open Animal Kingdom before they would go and open the other parks like Epcot and Disney Hollywood Studios. So, yeah, that's a good point, that Animal Kingdom has to be extremely careful with their animals. Let's see now. What else do we got? Personally, I think it's a good idea for Disney to reopen their parks in July, since I think Disney is taking precaution for their guests not getting sick and not in a rush like the other parks. But there is one comment I have to say for the parks. What about restaurants including buffets? Well, that is a good... Actually, no, they did... Well, yeah, they did actually mention that with the other theme parks. The thing is, with buffets and stuff like that, done. Don't even, like, that's not even gonna be a thing. Like, trust me, during this pandemic, buffets are gonna be, like, non-existent. Bigfoot is going to be more believable than a buffet that is actually open. Or if there is a buffet that is open during the pandemic, then the people running it are freaking idiots. So that's gonna be one major thing to notice. That, what about the buffets? Well, don't worry. They're not going to be open. They're just not going to happen, period. You just got to go into the regular restaurants where you have to order by phone, basically. I think that's the solution. I could be wrong, but I think that's the main thing with buffets, because, yeah, that's kind of a danger zone with the pandemic. Let's see. It says here... I'm a little skeptical about this move, but I am so glad that people will be able to ride the new Mickey Mouse ride at Hollywood Studios. Oh yeah, that is true. Honestly, with this whole pandemic, I completely forgot that Disney actually opened Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway just before this whole pandemic really hit North America. That is a good point. Anyways, as revolutionary as the ride is, you can't deny that it opened up at the worst possible time, which sucks because the ride looks absolutely great. I also have to give props to how careful they're being. Also, it's ironic that you bring up the Wasn't Me song, considering that they have a show called I Didn't Do It. Yeah, basically. And you know, the thing is, you bring up I didn't do it, and it makes me think of like the Simpsons episode where Bart has an entire catchphrase of I didn't do it. Yeah, like you guys may remember that episode, and it's like, oh yeah, it's from The Simpsons, and also that's technically another little bit of news that did actually happen this week. It's like a little bit of an honorable mention, I guess, but it is true that this week, also Disney Plus officially made the update where now you can actually check out the original Simpsons episode in their original aspect ratio, so they're not like zoomed up widescreen. You can actually back it up to the original 4:3 widescreen now. So that's another bit of exciting news and a bit of good news that actually did happen this week. So at least we can look into the positives. Let's see, what else do we got here? What other comments can I read? Let's see. Do we have? Well, there's not a whole lot, so I guess I'll just go and do one more. I thought this was right. I thought this was the right thing for Disney to open in July, just for a wait and see if Florida is ready to reopen theme parks, while seeing if it still works throughout June. Make the best for Disney and see if this works after June. Yep, I definitely agree with you there. And so, with that said, it is now time that we are going to move to the grand finale. And yes, we're already at the grand finale, and this episode, I'm not going to lie, is much faster than I expected. Okay, so maybe I could be wrong at the beginning when I said that this is going to be a big, long episode. Okay, but hey, anyways, it all works out, right? So with our next story, with the grand finale, yes, this is probably the anticipated one that everybody has been waiting for. This is the one that keeps popping up when I say, now it's time for the next story. Everybody is anticipated with it. Everybody is excited for it already. So with that said, you know what it is. It is now time that we are going to jump to Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Yes, it is official. Paramount Pictures and Sega Sammy has officially announced that there is indeed going to be a sequel to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Now, of course, this would actually make sense that Paramount would go and do it. In fact, you could debatably say that the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is the most successful feature film of 2020. In fact, it has already broken records so far of, in terms of like the movie, in terms of movies based on video games. It even says here, again, reading from my source here on Variety, that it actually scored the #1 opening weekend of all time for a movie based on a video game, and even got the 4th best President's Day weekend debut. Now, in the case of the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel, the big thing that they have done is just the fact that they have announced it, and that's it. We don't really know much about anything else. We don't have a release date. We don't know what the story is about. We don't even know who's going to be among the cast. So we don't fully know, even if, like, I know this is like a most likely case, but we don't fully know if we're going to have like Ben Schwartz or James Marsden or Jim Carrey coming back. This has not been confirmed so far. But we do know that the main people who have worked on it in terms of filmmaking are definitely going to return. So not just the executives, but on top of that, we also got the director Jeff Fowler returning, along with Pat Casey and Josh Miller. So that is the big thing that is going on with the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel. And if I may go and put in a little bit of my opinion, if you guys have not seen my review, honestly, I find the movie to be okay. It's a simple popcorn flick, but it does have a few admirable things that are unique and also a lot of fun as well. I mean, the thing is, in general, the movie is really just your typical generic buddy animation live action hybrid family flick. You know, it's really not that different from the stuff that we've already gotten in the past. You know, like this is no different than movies like Yogi Bear or The Smurfs or Hop and all that kind of stuff. It does follow that same formula, and even the story is not really all that engaging. It's just it feels like a dull and generic story where the writing just feels like, you know, it's just recycling a lot of old materials and old cliches from these kinds of family films and just go from there. However, of course, there are a lot of great admirable aspects to it. Like, Sonic himself can definitely be a lot of fun, and the visuals are absolutely amazing. Not only making Sonic look great, thank God for that redesign, am I right? But also the visual effects in general are just a lot of fun. And probably the best moments in the film are definitely the action scenes. They are exciting. They are a lot of fun. They are exhilarating. And on top of that, they definitely do feel like a feature film adaptation of the video game. They legit do feel like Sonic the Hedgehog. And of course, it goes without saying, holy crap, if there is one actor that really stands out the most from the rest, it has to be Jim Carrey. This is Jim Carrey coming back to what we all know and love from the guy. Like, after all the experimentations that he has done in the past, you know, like trying out for more serious roles or more like horror flicks and stuff like that, now we are seeing Jim Carrey coming back into the element that we all recognize him as, you know, playing the roles like Ace Ventura or the Grinch or like in Liar Liar and stuff like that, being completely over the top and having a blast with it, playing as Dr. Robotnik. So overall, it's a decent popcorn flick. It's not a great, memorable movie, but it is definitely a lot of fun with some good work that is actually put into it. So at least that's my piece on Sonic the Hedgehog. That's just my opinion on it, but it's no surprise, honestly, that they would actually go and do a sequel, especially when, I will say that I will admit that I'm probably on the lower end in terms of my opinion on it, because there are a lot of people out there that really did enjoy this movie, that they had a lot of fun with it, and they loved it, and a lot of people have already claimed this to be as one of their favorite films of 2020 so far. So it comes to no surprise that eventually that there would be a sequel, especially, and by the way, I'm just going to put out a little bit of a warning that I might discuss some spoilers into the film, so if you have not seen the movie and you want to avoid that, then I highly recommend maybe stepping back from this, so just a little bit of a warning if you don't want to be spoiled. But like, it even did, like, the movie itself even did tease that like a sequel would be coming up. But with that said, what we are left with now is just to make a bit of speculation. Like, what should we expect coming from this Sonic the Hedgehog sequel? What is going to happen? Now, I know at this point a lot of people are very excited to think about the possibilities of the sequel, and already people are making their own fan casting about who should be played as who. Like, they want to imagine who's going to be coming in as Amy, who's going to be coming in as Shadow, who's going to come in as Knuckles, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just going to say right now that if you are anticipating for like a major comeback of like all the big characters to make their big screen debut, if you're expecting like some kind of adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, then honestly, don't keep your hopes up, because for me, what I'm expecting is that, of course, Paramount wants this to be a major franchise, and thankfully for Paramount, for the first time in like a long time, they finally have a successful movie that they could turn into a prominent franchise. This could be the thing that could actually save Paramount Pictures in general, because let's be honest, they're really not doing well. Like, in terms of their performance, like, they're doing pretty poorly in terms of their movies and how they would go at the box office. As much as we would give crap to Sony Pictures for being in a pretty bad spot, Paramount Pictures is honestly no different as well. So in the case of Sonic the Hedgehog, I wouldn't be surprised if Paramount would just give a little bit at a time to really turn this into a massive series where there would be like a Sonic 3, Sonic 4, and so on and so forth. So what I'm expecting in the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel is that the most that we would get in terms of additions is probably just Tails. And maybe that's it. And the reason why I would go and say that is mainly because you look at the first movie, you know, you look at the Sonic the Hedgehog film, and that is a full-on adaptation of not just the franchise, but more specifically, it's an adaptation of the first game, and that's it. And that's when, like, they kept it all simple, where it's just Sonic the Hedgehog, it's Dr. Robotnik, they got the rings, and that's it. Yeah, we do have a little bit of a taste in the beginning with Green Hill Zone and stuff like that, and then you got a little bit of the additions of like the Knuckles tribe, or the Echidna tribe technically, and then you got Sonic's mom, which is surprisingly a giant owl, or technically the mother figure. I don't know what the fridge. It's just weird to see that Sonic's mom is an owl. But anyways, as I was talking about, the big thing with the sequel is that, well, I'm not really expecting much, and I'm only thinking that there would be the addition of Tails, because if you guys saw the post-credits of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, then you know that Tails actually does make a bit of a cameo. And in fact, the original voice actress of Tails, or at least the current voice actress of Tails in the games, actually does provide her voice as well. And on top of that, like, if there is any other extra additions, then I would think, honestly, maybe this would be the one that they would introduce the Chaos Emeralds. Like, yeah, they talked a bit about, like, the rings and stuff like that, but, like, and also the fact that Sonic's powers come from his quills. But honestly, like, maybe this could be the movie that they would introduce the concept of the Chaos Emeralds, since that is something that's been with Sonic since, like, the very beginning, even in Sonic 1. So, for me, I feel like with Sonic 2, it is just gonna be a full-on adaptation of just Sonic 2. Like, yeah, I could be wrong, of course. Maybe they will bring in other characters like Amy or Knuckles and stuff like that. But I'm not expecting too much. And what they're gonna do at the most is just bring in Tails and the Chaos Emeralds to stay more true with Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and really play around with that. Other than that, though, honestly, I don't know what to expect, but with the sequel, you know, I'd be down for it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the first movie, but you know what? Like, it did give me some fun, so, you know, I'd be interested to see what they would do with the sequel. Alright, so with that said now, even though I didn't really have much to say about it, and, well, I mean, there isn't really a lot to go with, considering it's just the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel and that's it, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, what do you all think about the announcement of the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel? And if you want, like, really go and make your predictions as well. Like, what are you anticipating to see from this sequel? What do you want to see be adapted to the big screen? Or what do you want to see come back? Or if there are things that you want to see return, or if you're not excited for it, let me know what you all think. Oh yeah, I think we got a lot to say on this one as well. Alright, so let's see. Oh my god, a Sonic sequel. But isn't that obvious considering how much spanking money that this thing made? So it would make sense, right? Well, absolutely. It is one, like I said, it's one of the most successful movies of 2020 so far. They always say you make sequels if you have a great idea, or just because the first one made tons of cash. And it seems that Paramount is starting to find their voice. However, they do have to give something else other than Sonic. Can't have a bad franchise repeating. Ice Age, yeah. You know, you do have a good point that, you know, this is the first time in a long time that finally Paramount does have a very prominent franchise that they could work with and don't have to rely just on the Transformers movies again and again and again. So at least it is a pretty exciting moment that now they have something new that they could go and work on. But if they can go and actually handle it well with the sequels, that is going to be something that we'll have to wait and see. But yes, like, now that they got a franchise, they do have to be responsible and be careful with it. Okay, let's see now. Ah, yes, it's great to see the official green lighting of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Rise of Olive Garden. Oh my god, that is so true. Oh, I completely forgot about the product placements that's in there, especially with frickin' Olive Garden. Oh god, I forgot that it was a thing. Oh crap. Anyways, it's great to yeah, okay, so somehow you already wrote that twice. I really like the first movie, and I still consider it the year's funniest film thus far, so you can pretty much see it there on opening weekend. What I hope they do is at least hire an African actor as Knuckles, you know, just for the memes. Well, okay, Yeah, not just for the memes, of course, but oh my god. I don't know. Okay, if you're doing it just for the memes, then you know that you're going to be entering into controversy. And that's not just bringing back an old meme of like oh god, like imagine if suddenly Knuckles comes in and is like, "Sonic, do you know the way?" Oh god, that would be terrible. But also like that you just open that would just bring up so much controversy. Oh god, I dread to think like what could happen if they do. Holy crap. No, but I do get it. But then again, like to be fair, the thing is with the Sonic movie, they were not far off into doing that, actually. They were not far off into actually presenting the Echidna tribe as that meme, considering that we did see the Knuckles tribe in the movie. Like, we do have a little bit of a hint of that. And yeah, they really did portray them as a bit of an African tribe, so it's really not that far off. So it's like, they were close, but you don't know. And especially with this movie, I mean, we already know that this movie is not shy from actually presenting any of the Sonic memes. Like, we did have a little bit of a cameo of Sonic. Like, you know, like the poor drawing of Sonic, like that actually did make a cameo in the film. So they are not, you know, these guys are not shy from presenting any of the Sonic memes. So you never know if they might do something with the Ugandan Knuckles. Okay, anyways, well, let's see. Hallelujah! This is one of the few good things to come out of 2020. I love the Sonic movie, and I'm really pumped for the sequel. I'm also glad that Jeff Fowler will be coming back to direct, and Pat Casey and Josh Miller will also come back to write. So, yeah, I think, honestly, with that aspect, I think Paramount is coming in with a bit of a mentality of, excuse me, like, really, like, bringing back the writers, the director, and a lot of the producers. They pretty much have the mentality of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, like, to make sure that they would stay true to the spirit of the original, then they would just bring those guys back in order to, to really add on to what they have already built to begin with. Let's see now. I really enjoyed the first movie. I saw it in theaters, the last film I saw before the closure because of COVID. So I'm really looking forward to see the sequel, especially to the relationship between Sonic and Tails. Also, it would be pretty funny if Sonic 2 would be released the same year as Illumination's Mario movie, which is 2022. So we can have that classic rivalry in the 90s, but for movies. Okay, so I just want to make something clear. Number one, it has not been confirmed that the Mario movie would be released in 2022. Like, that would be at the earliest, probably. It could be coming out in, like, 2023 or even 2024, so don't put your hopes up. And I know, honestly, I don't know if it is going to be released in 2022. I mean, they literally just announced it this week, so I'm not expecting this to come out like probably the earliest for this would be 2023. So don't expect them to pop out movies like that quick. So let's just wait and see on that. We have no confirmations on the release date. Maybe it is possible that maybe Illumination and Paramount might do a little something to release them both on the same year just for the sake of competition, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll just wait and see on that. Let's see now. What else do we have here? What other comments? I love the Sonic movie, and even though it was better than Detective Pikachu, so I am totally hyped for a sequel, though I'm not familiar with the game, so I can't really say what the movie will be about. Also, I could make some casting suggestions like Anna Kendrick as Amy. Maybe they could, maybe they won't, I don't know, it depends on what Paramount wants. Let's see now. Bring back Jim Carrey and let him keep dancing. That I can guarantee you they will absolutely do. Video game movies are getting better and better. First Pikachu, now Sonic. I am very open to this sequel along with Tails. Let's just hope that the Mario movie is doing the same for Illumination. What a good time to be a gamer and a moviegoer. Finally, they can both collaborate and enjoy movies together. Let's see. I think I'll go and read. I think I'll just read one more comment before we go. Let's see now. I think I might be optimistic for this. Yeah, sure, Sonic the Hedgehog is not the best film, but I could say that this and the Angry Birds sequel are considered the best films based on video game. Either way, I might be optimistic to know who would be in the sequel, other than in terms of other Sonic characters, or see more crazy hijinks from Jim Carrey that I'm excited for. And I think we are all excited to go and see that, regardless of how we feel in terms of the movie. And with that said, that should be it for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. So with that said, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all so much for listening. It has definitely been a tough week, but let's hope that things can definitely get better for next week, and hopefully we can have more fun in the next episode. And just remember, folks, don't forget to go and help out and donate to organizations like the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Don't forget to speak out and fight against white supremacy and racism, and let us all not forget that Black lives do matter. So with that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching, thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, see you later, dudes!